How did all of this happen? And I think a lot of us have been on that journey and have been trying to pick apart, how did we get here? How do we have groups, whole masses of people willing to vote for a liar, a felon, a cheater, a person who talked about his desire for his own daughter, what he thought about women, and they thought this man a holy man, and if they didn't see him as a holy man, they felt more comfortable with a serial assaulter, an SAer, than they did with a person of color and a woman of color in this last election, which was Kamala. And so I've dedicated my latest podcast, In the Dark, in which I combine like my love of all things tinfoil hatty, salacious, and downright like conspiracy theory laced. And I combine it all in my latest episode. And so that thing is long. And I'm putting it out on YouTube. Kind of shot it in a state of flow, and so I promise at the beginning of that thing that I'm gonna like summarize it all for you all, just so that if you don't want to listen to all that, you'd be able to get the gist of what I'm saying, and then have something like that you could work with. And so I'm gonna do that now. So what I talk about is we go down the rabbit hole of adrenochrome. Do y'all remember that stuff? That stuff that Q conspiracy theory in which there were people who genuinely believe, like they came to my area in my state, and a whole mass of them got together, like where Kennedy was assassinated, and they they met and they were all on the news talking about what they believed to be true. And we're all just sitting there kind of scratching our heads like, what the heck is wrong with these people? Like, how did they get here? And so I go on the journey during that podcast to kind of talk about how Americans they're created to be cultists. It's in the denial. It's come birthed out of narcissistic culture. Two, it comes from the fact that every system that we live under is a pyramid scheme. Capitalism being one of them, in which I talk about, which is a pyramid scheme that really it benefits the 1%. Right. And then you have the investor class, everyone knows, and you have everyone else. And everyone else is being oppressed and extorted for their labor, and they're not being paid. And so the 1%, the labor of the masses trickles up to the 1%, and that does not trickle back down. And so that 1% generates a series of lies that they feed back down into the masses, which gets them to believe all manner of things. And it is this pattern that I've just talked about that is being used to bamboozle not just Americans but human beings, because there's a larger scam culture at play that I talk about that is utilized, and I call it the slave process, because what people have not realized, and I've talked about it for a while on my channel, they have not realized that what was done to the slaves was really a microcosm, just an example of what has been done to all of humanity. And so I talk about Plato's cave. It's either going to be, depending on which section of the series that you listen to, like those last 3 episodes, I would listen to those, because I kind of begin to even concretize and summarize some of the stuff that I get into during like that hour and a half. I think it could be more than that. I think I stopped counting after like 8 of those things, 8-10 minute episodes. So, but what's gone on is, and this is what people will consider the more tinfoil hatty aspect of the rabbit hole I was going down. But what I, as an intuitive, have begun to teach is that reality is more expansive than you think. And my hope is that because I've given away a lot of future And I've used like what I can do by giving you possibilities, probabilities, and predictions that come true, that people will begin to find some validity in what I get into in that series. Because if you come to that series before you come to my content, you don't know who I am, it's gonna be like crazy. And unless you are intuitive and you know. But you guys, reality is more expansive than you think. And what I have begun to explain on my channel is that what people fail to realize as human beings, that your five senses, like even that programming is a part of the whole slave programming, or it's the it's the pulling you away from the true width and breadth of what could be perceived. Because perception is in large part a part of the problem that like current Americans are suffering from, because they not only are willing to give up an absolute requirement of the truth, right? We're in a post truth society, which is going to be incredibly vile, violent, and damaging, as you're going to see over time, if people don't relent from that, which you've got less than 50% that they are. Because people are cultists, as I was saying earlier, and they've been taught to yield to authority, and they've been taught to yield to authority without like actual evidence. And your religious systems, especially Christianity, and I'll keep with that one, the Abrahamic religions require you to believe without proof. And they say you cannot please God if you cannot come to God if you do not believe without having seen or heard. And that's a problem. It's why I began to deconstruct religion on my channel. And apologies if I'm talking fast, but I'm trying to keep this down to 10 minutes only, and I've got less than 3 left. And so that's part of these different systems that I call pyramid schemes: the religious one, the political one, the economic one, the white supremacy is another one that I've covered on my channel. They are all pyramid schemes, and they are absolute scams.